Let's say you just finished your Inkscape drawing, and now you want to animate it. Maybe you're thinking about a short animation, or maybe using it in a game. But where do you even start? That's actually a surprisingly complicated question, and that's exactly what we'll talk about today. In this video, I'll walk you through the best and easiest tools you need to know about if you want to start animating your Inkscape artwork. Now, I'm not a professional animator. I've only been getting into animation for a few months myself, but I've already gone through the confusion of figuring out where to start, and I think I can help you skip a few of those early mistakes, especially if you're a beginner wondering what software to use. First, a quick note before we begin. This is an Inkscape channel, and if you've been watching for a while, you know I tend to focus on open source software. I feel most people who use Inkscape either prefer open source tools, or they're just starting out and don't want to spend money on expensive programs to learn. So what I share here will focus mostly on open source animation options, but I also mention the industry standard paid tools just for context. Let's be honest, even if we prefer open source software like Inkscape, Krita or Blender, commercial programs, at least creative commercial programs, usually have more features and polish. Now, personally, I hate paying monthly subscriptions, and I really believe in the open source model. So even if a program is a little weaker or rougher around the edges, I'll still pick it over a paid one. And I know many of you Inkscape users probably feel the same way. I just wanted to set expectations. Creative open source tools often have fewer features and less documentation compared to commercial software, except maybe Blender, which is awesome, but that's another subject. Alright, one is over. Now let's check out some animation software. So what kind of software do we actually need to animate something? Well, that depends on the kind of animation you want to make. Since this is an Inkscape channel, I'll assume you want to animate vector drawings. Things you've created in Inkscape or any other vector-based program. That's already very different from traditional frame-by-frame animation, where you draw every single frame by hand, usually using a tablet. There are tons of programs that can do frame-by-frame animation, and a few of the tools I'll mention today can do that too, but that's not what this video is about. In this video we'll focus on taking your finished vector drawings and giving them motion, and to make this easier to understand, I like to separate these into two main categories of software: motion graphics software and programs with more specialized character illustration features. If your goal is to animate simple or small objects like trees or plants moving in the wind, or looping background objects, you may not want to deal with stuff like rigs with bones and AK and constraints and all that kind of stuff. In that case, motion graphics software tend to be faster and easier. However, if you want to animate characters, chances are that you need a more specialized software with all of those features. Motion graphics software tend to not have that functionality. So let's start with the motion graphics software. Now, in the industry, the standard for this kind of work is Adobe After Effects, and being incredibly powerful, it lets you both create complex rigs and directly manipulate the shapes and paths, but of course it's paid software and subscription based. When it comes to open source alternatives, there are really two main options worth mentioning: Friction and Synfig Studio. Both are motion graphic programs that aim to fill that After Effects niche, and both are active in development, getting more and more powerful features by the minute. Of the two, Synfig is probably the most feature-packed. It even includes a basic bone system for quick rigs. However, from my experience, it's also very unstable on Windows. I've run into constant bugs, to the point where it becomes unusable, and the interface feels unintuitive and clunky, especially if you're used to After Effects or Friction. Friction, on the other hand, feels much more polished and stable. It's actually a fork, a continuation of another open source motion graphic program called Enbe, which sadly ended development in 2022. Friction doesn't include bone tools like Synfig, but it makes up for that with a powerful scripting engine, and most importantly, an amazing SVG importer that brings your Inkscape drawings almost perfectly into the program. It's lightweight, stable on Windows, and really easy to learn. You can understand most of it within a few minutes of experimenting. So for now, I strongly recommend Friction over Synfig. Synfig has interesting potential thanks to its bone system, but on Windows it's almost unusable, especially the graph editor and the playback speed. If you're on Linux, it might run better, but overall Friction is the more practical, stable, and beginner-friendly choice in my opinion. But what if you want to animate characters using open source software? The industry standard for character animation varies a bit more. I already mentioned that some people use After Effects with plugins for character rigs, but the tools designed specifically for character animation are far more powerful. Toon Boom Harmony is probably the most popular option, supporting both raster and vector animation, whether frame by frame or fully rigged. Then there is Adobe Animate, the continuation of Flash, one of the original vector animation tools, packed with tons of features made just for animating characters. And Mojo has been gaining a lot of ground lately, offering a bunch of interesting and innovative features. When it comes to open source software though, your choices are much more limited. I'd say there are really only two solid options: OpenToons and its fork Tahoma 2D, and surprisingly enough, Blender, the popular 3D modeling software. There used to be a well-known program called Dragon Bones, which was loved by many animators, but development stopped and the only downloads available are from sketchy sites, so I strongly recommend you to stay away from it. OpenToons was born as a free open source version of a tool famously used by Studio Ghibli. Even today, just looking at it can feel overwhelming. It's incredibly feature-rich, but also pretty hard to understand. Development seems to have slowed down or maybe even stopped altogether. Tahoma 2D, on the other hand, is a fork that added new features, made the interface cleaner and faster, and is still actively maintained. So between the two, I definitely recommend going for Tahoma 2D. Finally, there is Blender. I think everyone already knows what Blender is, one of the most powerful and feature-packed 3D tools, and completely open source. But it's the grease pencil feature that has allowed to integrate 2D and 3D in a way never seen before. You get all of Blender's powerful animation tools, IK Bones, advanced modifiers, the Deep Node system, and an incredibly strong scripting engine, but you can use them all for 2D drawings. It's easily the most powerful way to animate in 2D with open source software. Of course, there is a catch. Blender is complex. It's known for having a steep learning curve, and if you're mainly a 2D artist, you may not want to learn all the 3D basics needed to use the grease pencil effectively. In the end, the choice is yours, but honestly I prefer Blender. Even if it's a bit harder to learn, it's not like Tahoma 2D or OpenToons are easy either, so you might as well spend that extra bit of time learning something truly powerful, and that has way more documentation and tutorials online. I like to start making some tutorials and other videos focused on basic animations, things like game animations or animated backgrounds or software overviews, always related to Inkscape and vector illustration of course, and I'd love your help with that. Let me know what you think, and what software you'd like me to cover first, or what type of animation I should do. Maybe you prefer Tahoma 2D over Blender, or maybe you'd rather skip open source tools altogether and see more about the industry standard ones. Either way, let me know down in the comments. Your feedback helps me a lot. And while you're there, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me and keeps the channel growing. Also, if you want to support the channel and learn and master how to draw completely in Inkscape, I have a full bundle of 13 Inkscape courses where you'll learn everything from creating characters for animation to designing full backgrounds and game art. It's currently on a big discount, so don't miss it. And that's it for this week. I'm really looking forward to reading your comments and see what kind of video I should do next. So see you next week. Bye!